in progress.
That's right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
I'd like to just start with a simple one. What's the future of the Democratic Party? Softball.
Good evening, Senator Murphy. I'm Vincenza McNulty from Sandy Hook, Connecticut. I also want to thank you for all you do to represent us in Connecticut and help our country as we are making our way forward in this craziness, and for doing your walk, and especially for all you've done for gun legislation and for Sandy Hook.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
I have a few questions, and I also have a suggestion similar to the other person who spoke. My questions are the following, and I know that our fearless leader throws things up and hope they stick, so I'm not sure all of these are actually in place, but he's talked about it. So my questions are, where is the money coming from for the $6 million that he paid to the president of El Salvador to keep migrants in?
Hello. Right? Yes.
Where is the $5,000 that he proposed possibly giving women to have more babies coming from? And then what are the criteria? Which women, what babies?
That's
how
right.
long?
That's
All
right.
that crazy.
That's right.
Carol.
That's right.
And I'm having trouble reading today, unfortunately. And when, I can't read the other question, the idea of accountability, when did lies become the truth?
Right.
And the foundation of our U.S. democracy and our government.
Right.
We're exhausted.
I got you.
That's right.
There you go.
All right. All right.
No.
You know, you got a long line behind you,
That's
so
right.
I might have to cut you off there. You asked me a lot of questions that I don't actually have answers for, but let me try. Because you asked some big questions, and both of them are big questions. So let me just take an opening shot at it. So what happened? The Democratic Party essentially became the party of the status quo at a moment when this country wanted revolution.
We need it again.
And we have to admit that.
We need it again.
We have to admit that. And in the 2024 campaign, and listen, I think Kamala Harris got put in an impossible position.
That's right.
Starting so late.
Should have
I'm
been
not
president.
in the business of critiquing and micromanaging her campaign. But this decision that we made to essentially make a tentpole of the party defending democracy really rang hollow with people, because they were like, why would we want this version of democracy? This version of democracy is rigged against us. All that has happened over the past 25 years is that the elites and the corporations have
That's
used
right.
this democracy to destroy
Corporate
us.
greed needs to stop.
So as
That's right.
a party, my prescription, and I've written and talked a lot about this, so I'm happy to send stuff around to people, is that, A, we absolutely have to be bolder in our economic ideas, right? But we also have to get back to where we were 20 years ago, when we were crusaders to unrig not just the economy, but the government, right? But when I started out in politics, like a top 3 issue for Democrats was getting corporate and lobbyist and billionaire and anonymous money out of politics. That should be.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
If Democrats ran a campaign based upon unrigging the economy so that we destroy the concentration of corporate power and empower workers, right? Higher wages, more powerful unions, right? Getting rid of all of the anti-worker rules. And we ran on unrigging the government so that regular people, rather than corporations and billionaires, have power. That is an incredibly popular platform that speaks to a huge coalition, including a lot of Trump's supporters. And so to me, yes, it's about big ideas, but it's also being very laser focused on unrigging the economy to support workers, unrigging the democracy to support regular Americans. Here's my only sort of teaser to your question, because I don't have an answer to all his crazy ideas and where the money comes from. He's making it up as he goes along. But maybe the most important question you asked is, and there'll be versions of this throughout the night, so I'll just tease this, right? How did the corruption sort of become normal, right? Why does it feel like he's getting away with it?
Come on,
Okay,
the
there's a
Heritage
lot of
Foundation.
layers-
Let's stop
There's
this
a
up.
lot of layers to that answer.
All right.
But I just want to suggest to you that there is something, we got to put up a mirror to ourselves as a country, right? There's something that has happened in America over the past 40 years in which we have kind of lost our mutual obligation to each other, in which we have been taught that the only thing that
That's
really
right.
matters is
That's right.
material achievement.
Yes.
the accumulation
Yep.
of
You got it.
and that the means justify the ends, that the end is just to have more stuff. And that how you get there is up to you. And if that's what life is all about, if life is just about material achievement, if life is just about how am I doing, then all of a sudden you become gradually and slowly inured to the more out of bounds
That's right.
methods by which you may derive that accumulation. And so, to me, we have sort of turned a little bit of a blind eye to Trump's corruption, in part because the bonds that connect us, that kind of limit our behaviors, because we're looking out for the collective, not just for ourselves, have frayed. And so we got to have a really hard conversation with the country about how we rebuild the common good, how we rebuild a concern for the common good, how we wake up every day and think about ourselves, but also think about our neighbors. And if we build that kind of society, then corruption is much harder to get away with, because we believe that we all owe something to the collective instead of just owe something to the pursuit of our own material success. That's a
Hello,
hard
that's
conversation
right.
in this country.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but how are we gonna do it? How are we gonna do it?
You spread the
Thank
word.
you for coming. I'm Monty Robeson from New Milford. I feel a lot better listening to what you say. I hope you're right about the coming election. We don't have a moment to lose to get this psychopath out of office.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I should have got that.
The climate change or disruption is serious, and we don't have a moment to lose on that. So
That's right, people.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes.
That's right. Democracy now, people.
Hey,
Maybe you remember me from years ago.
good to see you.
I'd like you to hold on to this for my question, if it's possible.
You hold on, I don't know what I don't know what it is, so I'm not necessarily into impromptu photo ops, but
I presented that to you in, what was it, 2012, in one of your little town meetings, Chamber of Commerce.
okay.
Lamp changer ring a bell?
What's that?
Lamp changer, does that ring a bell?
I don't know, you'll have to remind me, I'm sorry.
Really?
I'm gonna ask you, Brad, to bear with me, I'm gonna ask you a question of how many people.
Why don't you actually ask me
Really?
a question? So this is not your town hall, it's mine. So-
Thank you. Hello.
so-
Yes.
So
Right.
ask me.
Ask him.
Yes.
How many of your audiences have ever been on a boat in Long Island Sound or gone on a cruise in the ocean?
I don't really answer.
Maybe more than one?
Probably more than one.
All right. So this question is related to a device the Coast Guard uses, right? And I've asked Chris to help with since he's our congressman.
You need the mic.
Talk
this-
to the
this-
mic.
That helps. So this device, the Coast. Very good, thank you. I'm learning. So I used to be a manufacturer of similar devices. This is a lamp changer for the Coast Guard. And we encountered a problem that the Coast Guard's been buying, using these devices since 1969, and even up till today. I asked Chris to help me with the issue, and he pretty much has been silent. But he's not alone. Senator Blumenthal has also been silent on it after repeated efforts. I have made a little progress, Johanna Hayes, and she recently got a response from the Coast Guard, which pretty much sums up the last 40 years, that they're still defending and covering up the issue of these devices being deficient to what
MAGA.
they require.
He's MAGA. Get him out of
No,
here.
sorry.
You're MAGA. Get out of here. I know, really.
Listen, but just ask
Can
me.
you help?
Yeah.
And so for the crowd to understand what this, you're on the boat, and you're looking at the buoy to the right, which guides you in the waterway.
Why don't we, I don't know that it'll be totally productive for you to explain the technology to the audience.
Well, I want to know. Talking to Mike.
All right.
Hello.
Why
Thank
don't we- Let
you.
me suggest this. So
Fucking A.
obviously we do our best to help businesses in Connecticut get contracts and fix problems for the U.S. government. We don't succeed in all cases. It sounds like we have not gotten you what you want, and that sometimes unfortunately happens, but I'm happy to reconnect again with my staff after this. I don't know that it makes sense to go over the technology with the whole audience, especially with these.
Thank you, move on.
Right?
Thank you,
Come
Mark.
on, move on.
Be happy to follow up with you. Okay, thank you for coming, appreciate it.
Sit down.
Hey guys, I'll control the town hall. I appreciate your help, but I'll be glad to follow up with you. Okay, I'll be glad to follow up with you.
Sit down. Next question.
Really?
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Murphy. Just want to let you know I'm very proud to have you as our senator for Connecticut.
Right. Right.
I'm trying to keep this brief. There are a lot of questions to be asked of you. Inside the big ugly bill is a provision intended to block the courts from using contempt to enforce its orders.
That's right. That's right.
It reads, this is pretty short, it's only a paragraph. It reads, no court of the United States may use appropriated funds to enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction or order was issued. So that to me sounds like it's retroactive, but it's still a bad provision. The translation is no federal court may enforce a contempt citation. The measure would make most existing injunctions in antitrust cases, police reform cases, school desegregation cases, and others unenforceable.
Unbelievable.
Its only purpose is to weaken the power of the federal courts.
That's right.
This provision would eliminate any restraint on, I hate to say it, our president. I'll put that in quotes.
Right. Use that term
My
loosely.
question to you is, will you help remove this provision?
Yes.
Senator Murphy, jet usage, Avon, Connecticut, and my wife Victoria from Avon as well.
Thanks for making the trip.
Thank you, close to your hometown. You might see I'm wearing an NIH jersey. We're big fans of the NIH. I think it's okay to say. My wife's on vacation, and one of the protocols there, she's doing great because of the incredible scientists and efforts and work at the NIH.
No, it's that
So we have, our boys are in the same study, so it's really incredible what the scientists do down there. And it's, for most Americans, it's probably, maybe you never even heard of the NIH until recently, but there's a lot of great things that have come out of there over the decades. So we have great concerns as to the direction of, obviously, HHS and NIH in particular. You know, obviously, we have very specific family interests. But, what might a strategy look like to, combat what appears to be efforts to set us back, decades in scientific research, where if you walk down one of the stairwells, and I'm sure you've been there, the staircase says this is the largest research institution in the world. And it's going backwards, unfortunately. We heard firsthand from the doctors, et cetera. So just to land the plane, what might a strategy look like to combat what they're doing down there? I know it's very challenging to see on YouTube trying, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
To the gentleman here, I'm not intimately familiar with that provision. Obviously, that bill we are literally in the process, our offices, of unpacking it. So be happy to, obviously that sounds like a disaster. Yeah, so I will immediately put my staff to looking into that provision and be happy to. Obviously, there are going to be a number of provisions in that bill that there will be opportunities to remove. There are a handful of Republicans in the Senate who are willing, in a limited fashion, to stand up to pieces of that legislation. That sounds, like an absolute transparent power grab against the Article 3 authorities. So be happy to learn more about it. Listen, what's happening at NIH is just absolutely heartbreaking, but there is an opportunity here because the benefits of medical research really have nothing to do with partisanship. There's no, boundaries around the benefits of medical research that wouldn't allow us to be able to build a really strong bipartisan coalition all across the country to fight back. And so, we have an opportunity still to write our own budget. We do not have to accept these cuts. Our hope is that we're going to be able to work with Republicans, especially in the Senate, when we write the next budget, to be absolutely clear in the language that when we appropriate dollars, that the president doesn't have an independent authority to be able to cancel those dollars.
That's right. Hello.
He doesn't already. It's not that he does, but we can make it even more crystal clear in the legislation. But I do think it's important to step back and understand why this assault on science and the NIH is happening. It isn't necessarily because, Donald Trump has it out specifically for medical research. It's because if you are engaged in an attempt to destroy democracy, then you have to destroy objective truth. Right, and this is the lesson that has been learned over and over again from elected leaders who have transitioned democracies to autocracies. Is that you just essentially confuse people so badly about what is true or what is not true, as to be able to get away with murder. And so the primary guardians of objective truth in this country are our scientists. Right? And so if you undermine medical research, if you undermine climate science, then you are very quickly getting to the world in which Donald Trump wants, in which there is no black or white. 1 + 1 may equal 2, but it may equal 3. And so if he's stealing from you, is it wrong or is it right? Who knows? Because nothing is true any longer. If you want to operate in an out of bounds way, if you want to sort of have your administration defined by unethical behavior, then you have to destroy the rules that decide what is ethical, what is not, what is true, what is untrue. So in our fight to sort of preserve and stand up our democracy, I think we are serving this goal of also protecting medical research. So we may be able to come to some sort of short-term accommodation with Republicans who believe in medical research, but in the long run, if we successfully fight back his attempts to try to convince us that democracy isn't worthwhile, we will also be engaged in that long-term work of trying to stand up and defend medical research and science.
Yes.
Senator Ted Lawson from Sherman. It's clear to me, it appears to me at least, that our Democratic Party is at this point rudderless, and I do understand that there is a political process that has to go through in order for the Democratic Party to reestablish who it is and so on. And you speak very well to that. But we, those of us who are, you referred earlier to the more or less the grassroots, and we who feel necessary that we need to resist ourselves, at least I feel that we're leaderless in that. And with all due respect to you and your position, Cory Booker and others, that's not where that leadership is going to come from. I don't know where it's going to come from, but I do know that there needs to be a national leader that emerges that supports
Kamala Harris. She should have been president.
There were a series of demonstrations around the country, including in New Milford. It looked to me like there was about 500 people that showed up. That's not bad. So there certainly are a lot of people who want to figure out how we can be a part of that 3 or 4% referred to earlier, and we need leadership to have that happen.
Hello, my name is Michael Jones.
Kamala Harris for you.
I'd be fine with you being that leader.
I'm sorry, I disagree. We had one. Kamala Harris should have been president. She should have been president. Kamala, bullshit. She should run again. At least she's our leader. Should have been president.
But I also wanted to make sure you knew about what the gentleman prior mentioned. And I happen to have a printout of Robert Reich's article of 3 days ago called Hidden Provision in the Big Ugly Bill That Makes Trump King. It's about contempt of court.
I've seen headlines on it. I've just been on the walk for the last few days, so
It also bans national injunctions, so if one federal judge says one thing, it's...
Yeah, I knew that part.
Okay, so maybe I could leave this printout with one of your stuff. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I came to the first town hall where I saw you, and in the first Trump administration, many people raised the same questions, and we were worried. I feel like we dodged one, that we made it through that. But people ask, are we going to survive? People really worried. They were asking, what's the Corey, I'm going to use first name.
Every day you lose legitimacy. I think the opposite is true, right? I mean, if your house is burning down and you aren't working every single minute to save your kids and to put the fire out, right? No one would ever look at you the same way ever again. As a party, we will forever lose legitimacy if we don't act every single day like we believe what we said.
That's right. Yes, exactly. Yep.
And so I will continue to do that. I don't know that I have the secret sauce as to how to, swell my ranks. But part of the reason that I am, going out on the road nationally is because, I want to show folks that, people are hungry for this kind of leadership. That if you show up, as I did in a, small town in rural North Carolina, Saxapahaw, North Carolina, even as a rank and file member of the Senate, you can get a huge turnout of people who want to hear this narrative and want to hear what they can do to help. I guess I kind of respectfully disagree. I don't know that we are going to have a national leader emerge. There's really no process for that. I mean, it wouldn't actually be helpful for us to pre-run the nomination for president, because that would just become, an internal firing squad. We'd just be, scrapping at each other to see who is going to be that national leader. So I think it's nice to think about a world in which just naturally somebody emerges as the leader of the Democratic Party, but that's actually not how politics works.
Exactly.
Everybody wants to be the leader of the Democratic Party, so there'd be a huge fight, and instead of actually being in common cause with each other, and accepting that for now it's okay that there are a whole bunch of different loud voices, we'd end up just fighting each other internally. And, you guys would be for Buttigieg, and you guys would be for Whitmer, and you guys would be for Bernie, right? And that's not what we need right now. Right now, as much as we have these tactical disagreements, we are pretty united around the idea that we need to stop the corruption, the thievery, protect our democracy. We may go about it different ways, but I actually think there's plenty of experience, not just in American history, but in modern world political history, of movements that have a whole bunch of leading voices being pretty successful. I think we just have to accept that that's what this is going to look like for the next 6 months, and not spend our time worrying that instead we should have
at a town hall
one
meeting.
person at the top.
Hello.
I think that journey is probably not going to work. All right.
Talking about trying to save our democracy with the Senator Chris Murphy.
Oh, sorry.
Colleen Kisselberg.
I like that the
Love you
women are
guys.
following the instructions to not grab the microphones, and the guys are grabbing the microphones.
Well, kind of a rule follower.
Yes.
But anyway,
Hello,
I
get
like
rid
what
of
you
that
said,
Trump.
we're coming on our
That's
250th
right, he's evil.
anniversary of this experiment, and, you know, what's great about we the people is we all get to have our varying opinions, and that's what makes us strong. And united we stand, divided we fall.
That's right.
So, you know, when I sit and think about what to do, I have people ask me, Mom, what should we do, and all this kind of stuff. I think, okay, well.
I love you
First thing I
too.
think about is we have rules, we have a constitution. It's set, it's there, everybody can read it. When you have a democracy, you vote, you elect in a president, you know, so Donald Trump is elected president, okay, what did he do? The first thing he do, he takes an oath to follow the Constitution, an oath to protect the people and to protect us. He doesn't own us, he
Okay.
doesn't own the land, he doesn't own the treasury, he doesn't own the people. It's we the people, he works for us. Okay, so now, when you break the oath, which he has done, and it's obvious to everybody, when you break that oath of office, and he's even said he doesn't even care about the Constitution. Okay, so what can be done? I know you're not the
He is
majority
a
party
crime
in the
boss.
Congress
Yes,
and
he
the
is.
Senate, but what can be done to put forth a whole list of, you know, what he has done to break the oath to file for impeachment? Because I don't think we can
Right.
last till 4 years for an election.
Hello.
This fast pace is destroying our country. I feel like
I need more
we have
Democrats.
enough ammo
That
to
should
write
change their
up
mind.
articles of impeachment.
I
I
know.
wasn't professional in politics, but write up something to put across to say, look, here
Yeah,
outlines
he's already been impeached
why
twice
you need to be
already.
impeached. It's because you've broken your oath. And that goes for, that goes for every Republican or person that has taken an oath to serve the
Don't sit on your
people.
phone.
That's it.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, everyone, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate seeing you here. And
Yeah.
I wish I had seen you in Kent today, but I love.
Yeah,
Bull's
impeach
Bridge
that
coming us
bastard.
to,
They've already
glad
impeached
we
him,
got
but
to
you
visit
know
you.
what?
Yeah, they were
We gotta get out and start demonstrating more.
They're wonderful. They really are. Sorry I didn't have to see them so often. But anyway, I'm a retired educator. I remember teaching high school civics and about the Constitution, and the first time we had this president, I had to put it on Facebook what the separation or checks and balances was all about. 3 different branches, all that. I am very concerned about this executive branch overreach. He's even, I've seen him on TV say something like, if it all works out, we won't have any more elections. And you voiced a little question about that tonight. Are we gonna have free and fair elections again? I heard a rumor, it's even in the big ugly bill, that he could delay or cancel elections. So I just wanted to let you know, I'm very concerned about that, and I hope our senators are working to put up some safeguards.
That's right. That's right. It's stopping us women from voting.
Yeah, so, listen, you know, there's, if you look at the conduct that he was impeached for in his first term, right, there's no doubt that he has done much worse in his second term. The reality is that,
I will die for our democracy.
House of Representatives, and when he was impeached, Democrats controlled the House of Representatives, so there's not any way to move an impeachment practically through a House that is controlled by Republicans. You know, we're, you know, right now trying to operate in terms of what is possible, and so there are maybe more practical fights to take on at the moment. On this question of you know, whether we're going to have a free and fair election. This is the one comment I'll make about it, because we could talk all night about this. I do worry that we may have constructed a bit of a straw man in terms of what constitutes the 5-alarm constitutional crisis. So the popular conception is the bell ring happens when he violates, you know, a major order of the Supreme Court. Now, arguably, he's already done that.
Hello?
But I think people imagine the confrontation ultimately being a little bit higher stakes than the, you know, deportation of one or a handful of individuals. And that is true. That would be a 5-alarm constitutional crisis. But what he's actually trying to do is something much more insidious, right? Yeah. In countries that have been transitioned from democracy to autocracy, they by and large still have elections. I mean, even Russia still has elections. But Turkey has elections, and Hungary has elections. It's just that the same party wins.
Right.
At the national level. The opposition party is allowed to win sometimes at the local level. The opposition party is allowed to exist.
Oh my God.
But the rules are just always
Where's he
tweaked
trying to figure? Is
enough.
this okay to be fascist?
The press is co-opted, civil society is destroyed, the lawyers are on the run, the universities are owned by
That's
the
okay,
regime.
Mia Moore.
Just enough
It's
so
okay.
that the same guys win over and over again. And I think that's the world in which he envisions and Republicans envision, is not that they're going to
You're
cancel
doing
or
very
postpone
well anyway.
elections, not that he's going to march an army into the Congress or into the Supreme Court, but
I love you
that,
too.
he's going to do just enough to bully the press into submission,
That's
to
right.
legitimize political violence, which has the impact of sort of pushing a lot of activists indoors, that there's just no way for the opposition party to really exist. And so that's why right now some of the most important stuff that's happening is happening at Harvard. And happening among
Yes.
the university system, right? This decision that they are making and that the law firms have made
That's
way
right.
too late
That's right.
to engage in collective action, right? And say, no, we are not going to let you bully us. We're going to immediately take you to court. We're not going to cut deals with you. That's some of the most important stuff. Those are Harvard is learning lessons, and these law firms that are now finally standing up to him are learning lessons from what went wrong in countries like Hungary, where early on everybody just wanted to cut a deal and sort of hoped that things would go back to normal. But once you cut the first deal, then you're forced to cut the second and the third and the fourth. It gets worse, not better. And I think after some, I think stumbles at the beginning with Columbia and with Paul Weiss and others.
Welcome to America. Sorry you came at this
key accountability
awful time
institutions are starting to
with that
learn.
asshole
So that's
in
my
office.
that's my optimism.
Yes, yeah.
Hi there, my name is Amy Zipper, I'm from Sherman. Earlier you encouraged us to use some of the sort of traditional, means of being politically active, going to protests, writing
Thank you,
letters and so forth,
boo.
and I have been writing.
Okay.
Mostly to say that.
I've never been there.
But the reality is that for somebody like me, at the federal level, my two senators are people with whom I basically agree. Thank you for that. My representative is also someone, with whom I basically agree. It seems to me that it's really your Republican colleagues in Congress whose minds have to be swayed to help break some
Hello,
of the
that's
policies.
right.
But I'm not a constituent of any of them. Is there anything whatsoever that somebody like me can do to help move that along? I don't know, I haven't been able to think of a single.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Senator. My name is David Lowenhurst, also from Sherman. A couple of small points and questions. One, I do take your point about every Democrat in power wants to be the leader of the party. But in my view, we do have a leader, at least in the Senate, who is Chuck Schumer. And I've really seen very little.
Oh no, not what the fuck,
coming
Chuck.
from him.
He's awful.
And he could be one to stand up.
No,
and
he
fight
doesn't.
more for,
Doesn't.
things that he
Shut
believes
up.
in and things that everybody
So
here
then we
seems
should have
to
shut the
believe in.
government
He seems to
down.
be
So we
more
wanted to put it
quiet.
down.
And I wonder actually why that is.
Because Chuck needs to go. We need to replace Chuck.
I'd also like to read just a couple of questions from a neighbor of ours who said, what can we do to make an impact other than sending the Democrats money, which we won't do until we hear a bold message and concrete action plan from them? Could we help organize community protests? We want to be put to work to help, but we aren't being given direction.
You don't have to, just do it. Collect the people and you do it. Just do it.
Frustrated voters are ready to act. Senator Murphy's, this is now what she said, Senator Murphy's website offers no information about how
I know you do,
citizens
and I
can get
thank you.
involved, nor does it indicate where protest movements, town halls are taking place in the next
I
few
thank
months.
you for your...
Even a simple, curious and frustrated, here's what you can do to get involved, and list the activities on his website would be very useful. Great.
Yeah, so I can't,
Yes, it would
just
be.
logistically, I can't do any of that on my website, right? My website is a government website, you can't do politics on the website, but I will repost, so I do post on social media that exact list that she's asking for, so she might not have seen it, but I have a sort of long list of all the things that you can do at this moment. And it's a long
Yes, it
list
is.
because
But
there are political organizations you can join, there are not-for-profit groups that are assisting the most vulnerable communities that are under assault right now. There are Republicans that you can call. That does make a difference. So I will try to continue to repost that list on my political channels. I just can't put that on.
You could protest on your own too. Gather up.
It does help to call the Republicans, even though you are from Connecticut, because what you are trying to do is just raise the volume level in the Senate and in the House so that this movement is unavoidable. It's just, I remember this during 2017. So everybody, I tell the story a lot, but it is important to remember this. Everybody thought that Republicans, once they won the Senate and the House and President Trump was elected, they were going to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Why? Because that was their number one promise. Their number one promise was that if you elect us, we will repeal the Affordable Care Act. We promise we will definitely do it. And they didn't. And I remember why they didn't do it. Because the volume level inside those buildings every single day was sky high, because phones were ringing off the hook. And it wasn't all calls from Louisiana into Louisiana. Sometimes it was calls from Connecticut into Louisiana. But if you were a staffer in those offices, you know, you walked out to the hallways to talk to your friends and you're like, oh my God, the phones won't stop ringing about this Affordable Care Act. And that mattered just enough in 2017, just enough so that we convinced just enough Republicans in the Senate to say no. And despite the fact that the political pundits told us there was no chance we were going to get it done, we were able to create enough noise. So yes, we still like when you call us, because believe me, the folks who are not in this room still call us. And so just to preserve my staff's sanity, they really enjoy it when people who agree with us and who are giving us a pat on the back call. But don't be afraid to just, you know, pick up the phone and make 4 calls to a random group of Republican Senate offices. It actually does make a difference.
That's
the
right.
last thing you want is
Yes.
for those offices to quiet.
Yes. Yep.
Thank you, Senator Murphy, for coming to New Milford. Our mayor here has actually dubbed New Milford the best town in the USA, and I think no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, we can all agree that New Milford is the best town in the USA, so thank you for coming.
I'm sure everyone not from New Milford agrees. But I'm in New Milford, so I agree.
My name is Matthew Abel, and I'm a pediatrician here at Candlewood Valley Pediatrics in New Milford. I've been at my practice for the past 24 years. I've seen my share of communicable diseases and hospitalizations in kids. Our Secretary of Health and Human Services is a known conspiracy theorist and anti-vaccine advocate.
I know, right?
We've seen measles spread through the country, and vaccine hesitancy is a significant concern for parents. Just 2 days ago, he removed the COVID-19 vaccine indication for healthy children and pregnant women from the CDC immunization schedule. This will undoubtedly lead to more illness, hospitalization, and death. Today, there are reports that the sources he cited in his MAHA report aren't even real, but generated from AI. Even the authors who he cites state they didn't publish the studies that are referenced.
Unbelievable.
The nominee for the Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Casey Means, has not completed a residency, does not hold an active medical license, and cannot treat patients other than alternative means.
Oh my.
What is it that you and your colleagues are doing to hold the Trump administration accountable for this mountain of mis and disinformation?
Hello. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for being so vocal, especially when we are seeing a constitutional crisis. My question is, you know, because this isn't something that was happening, you know, just during this term or the previous Trump administration term. A lot
Since
of our
Reagan.
constitutional rights have been being eroded over many years, and it's kind of disheartening to see that your colleagues in the Senate are willing to cede a lot of their powers, and particularly the power of the purse. So I guess my question is, what are you and your colleagues colleagues doing to maintain the power of Congress, the power of the purse, and the things that the Constitution, allows, is supposed to be given you to be able to do, and not the executive branch?
Sure, thank you for the question. Thank you for serving our kids in Milford. Thank you for speaking up on their behalf. Listen, we saw this coming. Again, we all have to live with the fact that some of this is surprising, but not much of it is surprising. And this country decided to elect somebody that openly traded in conspiracy theories, that wrapped his arms around RFK Jr. You really didn't have to guess wildly to think that he was going to end up as the Secretary of HHS. And who told the country that he was going to be a dictator on day one. And was a convicted felon.
It's disgusting.
And he still got elected. And so
Unbelievable.
this does have to be, and this is not exactly a direct answer to your question, but I just think it is a moment for kind of humility as citizens and as the opposition party, right? We obviously got the message very badly wrong, and as a country, I do not think we have effectively understood the level of pain that people are in America today, that they are willing to give power to somebody this irresponsible. So we are going to have to, this is back to the first question that was asked, right? Like, the way to beat this guy is not just by going to court, it's by offering a different radical rewrite of the economy and of our government that speaks to where people are today. One of the things we're going to have to do, especially here in Connecticut, is really empower public health professionals and doctors and nurses. So as you know, I was very fortunate this year. A lot of people who were very upset about what was happening with the early days of the Trump administration would go online late